Let me do this here. I'll let Michael in.
Cool.
We're just about to get started. Michael, we didn't think anyone was going to join, so we were about to kickstart this whole thing, and then
hey, Michael.
Then we'll get going. Thanks for joining, buddy. But let's do this.
All right,
Nerissa, give yourself an introduction, and then we'll go into the presentation that you put together and some actionable steps on how to achieve effective outsourcing for agencies.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alex. My name is Nerissa Show. I'm co-founder of Filter. We are an outsourcing company, but really what we do is solving one problem, and that is, what is your people problem? So how we solve that, we work with agencies and merchants, which is through two parts: outsourcing in the Philippines, which is a dedicated full-time resource, as well as local and global recruitment. I also run the world's largest Shopify e-commerce event in person and virtually, which is very exciting. So I had 1,000 retailers join me a few weeks ago. And we are also ranked in the top 10 BPOs for new innovative ways of doing business, which is exciting. So that's us. Thanks, Alex.
Very cool. And I'm going to mute myself on and off because we have this truck that keeps backing up outside my office window here. So we get a little bit of noise. But the name of the game here, I think we've all dabbled in outsourcing. If we're agencies, I've done it. I've had good luck and bad luck. And I've never had a full-time outsourced virtual assistant, as the term that most of us use, but this goes beyond that. So what we want to do is develop a highly skilled workforce that's co-managed in a way that gets some repetitive task, maybe to start, something done and is scalable, something that we can really go to market with, right? Whether it's setting up a new e-commerce store and it's the first maybe 5 to 10 key steps in that are repetitive, or it could be setting up a certain type of a CRM, or it could be a sales system. It could be something. So I've had my experience. I don't need to make this about me, but think about you guys, your experience with outsourcing and some of the things that you've ran into that has made it not as successful as you thought it could be. Or maybe you've had some good luck and you just want to know how to add some gasoline to the fire, so to speak. Nerissa has done it on all levels and she scales the shit out of it. So thank you very much for being here, and let's go into it.
Cheers. Thanks, Alex. Hey, shout out to Michael and Isaac for joining us live. Love it. So basically, guys, if you're tuning in my opinion, you're already ahead of the game and you're thinking about strategically building your business. Again, my name's Nerissa Show. I'm actually joining you today from Brisbane, Australia. And to thank those for joining us live, I'd also like to gift you with the audio book of Start With Why by Simon Sinek, which absolutely transformed our business. And I hope it makes as big as an impact on you as it did me. So guys, the people that are here, please let me know in the chat where you're joining us from, and I will say hello to you later in the Q&A. So like Alex mentioned, I'm going to make a few assumptions. Some of you who are joining us want to explore outsourcing and you need some more information before you dip your toe in. Others may have tried it before and you've had horrific experience, but you know it's an option you want to explore again. You just need a few tips. So ultimately, the purpose of today is to show you how to do outsourcing right and give you some examples of how other agencies are doing it. So what we're going to cover today is, what is outsourcing? When I talk about outsourcing, what jobs are people outsourcing? What jobs to consider first? How do I manage performance, costs, and how to work that out? And what level of autonomy to expect? So, like most digital agencies, particularly if you're in the e-commerce space in 2020, you likely were going gangbusters. In our space, all our clients saw incredible growth with no signs of stopping. So how do you as an agency find staff who are remotely based, who are not only well-classed, but are more cost beneficial. So we saw, particularly in e-com, platforms like Shopify make it so accessible for merchants to grow quickly. And the demand in agency land for good talent has never been as high as it is now. The other thing that we saw, and I'm sure you guys did too, is COVID has amplified that we don't need everyone in the same one office. We don't even need satellite offices, and stringing that all together. The smart agencies are looking at it saying, we need good people resources. We don't need them to be here with us. So how can we find great talent globally that is cost effective? So we also saw it was the year where distributed workforces came into their own. So whether it's more of a work from home arrangement, coordinating global distributed workforces, or building high performance teams in tech hubs like the Philippines, 2020 saw structures of businesses, and I'm talking people structures, that were once only the domain of your big corporate tech enterprises. Now it's becoming really accessible to small to medium-sized agencies. So as that happened, we saw the demand for talent in the Philippines, and in particular Manila, grow to its highest level. So Manila is actually one of 5 super cities. And the business process outsourcing industry, so BPO, generated $50 billion in 2020. And because of this growth, particularly in e-commerce and digital, what we saw is more candidates actively increase their skills and experience in digital marketing, graphic design, web development, and project management. Likewise, what we saw with the e-commerce retailers, we saw a huge demand for talent in product listing, logistics coordination, back office support, and customer service. So what do I talk about when I mean outsourcing? So to clear up any potential confusion, when I talk about it, this is what it means. It's a hand-picked, dedicated team member who works full-time for you and you manage their work, where an outsourcing company looks after legal, payroll, and compliance and helps you with employee engagement and performance. Like Alex mentioned before, mate, I've done it all. I've done Upwork, I've done Fiverr, I've done temps, I've done contractors, I've done part-time, I've done full-time, I've done everything. And I think sometimes those platforms can be really great when it's like short-term projects. But I think as agencies scale, and what they're looking for is they just want someone who believes in their business, they feel connected to, that understand the way they work, and they're just getting the job done. So everyone always wants to know, what are other jobs that other agencies are outsourcing? So at the moment, what we're seeing in global marketing trends, when you hire locally, it is all about hiring people where you're driving your strategy, they're driving sales. It's high level analysis with great people who have an absolute understanding of your market psyche. What we're seeing though, across the board, particularly in US, Canada, Australia, UK, Europe, is that agencies are investing in outsourcing through 4 main areas: development, creative, digital marketing, and VAs. So when we look across those countries and the agencies we work with, the 5 most in-demand jobs we are seeing agencies hiring is development. Any language, front end, back end, full stack, mids and seniors, particularly quite popular. Graphic design, as well as your UX, UI designers. Definitely social media managers, paid search, Facebook ad specialists, Google ads. That is particularly in the last 3 months, huge demand. Digital project managers and producers. And of course, Alex, you own your own business, and I'm sure everyone here does today. We all desperately need help in managing our time. So VAs and executive assistants is also in demand. So as an example, I'm going to give you 2 examples, and then I'm going to show you some facts, some figures. But I'm just going to talk through an Australian example. We work with one of the leading Shopify Plus agencies, and they actually started outsourcing for the very first time at the end of 2019. So they actually wanted to start with 3 people in the Philippines. So when we mapped it out and did a strategic analysis with them about who do we hire first, because that's normally the most critical, we decided, and they decided, let's hire a senior digital project manager. Once she was on board, we then helped them hire 2 senior front-end devs. And now, as of April, no, we're in May. Oh my gosh, we're in May. As of May, they are currently at 15 people in the Philippines. They are looking to double their Philippines team by end of 2021. The skill sets that they want to expand to, so they've already got a very strong development team, but keep growing that, keep growing their project management team, and then move into copywriting, production, and SEO. So, of course, as probably you guys are too, due to COVID, they are growing, they're getting more inquiries, they're still billing out at Sydney prices, right? So Western prices. But like for like, the people are of the same quality as that they would hire locally, but half the price. And interestingly, because they now have an Asian presence, it's actually allowed them to win Asian work. And I want to leave some food for thought for everyone today. E-commerce in Asia is actually on the rise. So there's a steady expected growth of 8.2% from 2021 to 2025. So that actually places Asia ahead of the United States and Europe, who combined, I think, are looking at growth rates of 5.2. So when we're talking about, for instance, e-commerce, the expected market value of e-commerce in Asia is to hit $2.2 billion by 2025. So when you're thinking about your agency, when you think about clients, definitely start thinking Asia. So likewise, we had another agency. They actually referred us to one of their clients, which was a cosmetics global brand. The agency actually did quite a complex rebuild. They also migrated them from one platform to another platform. They had to relaunch in 9 countries. So they did that. And through those conversations, and as agency owners, right, your job is to, how do you keep adding value? How do you keep adding to your customer? What they'd worked out, interestingly, was the customer support was terrible. Interestingly, even though it was a global brand, the average email customer support response time was 8 hours. And issue resolution was around 72 hours. So as we saw in e-commerce, right, COVID happened and blew up. Like, people are shopping online. These guys had an increase of 300%, interestingly, in lipstick because of Zoom conferences. But what happened was, because they were so unprepared, particularly in customer support, they were getting negative comments on their Insta. They were getting super nasty emails, and the volume of emails was really high. And of course, not just complaining about returns, etc., but we all experience like logistic delays, right? So a lot of delayed delivery times, not communicating up properly. So their major concern was, we do not want to lose our existing clients, and we don't want to turn away or give new customers a bad experience. So the agency actually did an intro into Filter and said, look, can you have a look at what they're doing and how can you help them? So what we did was an analysis workshop. And working with what they wanted to achieve, we realized that to help them best service their customers, they needed to start with 2 customer support people, non-voice, pure email, live chat, social media support. We are also a partner of Gorgeous Software. So they were actually looking at implementing that. So it was also about implementing Gorgeous as their help desk tool, but powered by real people behind the end. Interestingly, and it still shocks me that retailers are still doing this, but they just figured people were only shopping online 9 to 5. So what they decided to do when looking at their peak times is they hired those 2 people Monday to Friday, managing 2 shifts between 7 a.m. to midnight. So when the 2 customer support people started, their initial response time, so the initial KPI was, let's reduce it to 4 hours. So respond to all inquiries, queries within 4 hours with a 48-hour time frame ticket solve rate. Within 45 days of hiring these 2 people, the average KPI response time was reduced to 1 hour, and they were closing tickets within 24 hours. So as an agency, what does that mean? It means you win, you look good, your customer looks good, everyone is winning. And that is the power of hiring people where you probably couldn't afford all the overtime rates, etc., locally. So how do you understand the cost difference? How do you work that out? Do I hire locally? Do I hire part-time? Do I hire a freelancer? Do I hire someone in another country? So if I'm an Australian, do I hire someone in New York? Or do I look at outsourcing? And again, I'm really specifically talking about Philippines because that's where we are. So we had a digital agency. Again, this is an Australian client. Forgive me, I am Australian, so I am referencing Australians. But they were a digital marketing agency. Their whole team actually was in Australia. They wanted to hire digital marketing generalists. And they thought, okay, before we go out to market and find someone to join our local team, maybe there's another option. So what they were paying for 2 years experience, degree qualified digital marketers and had to come from agency world, they were prepared to pay 60,000 Australian. And as you know, as owners, it's never just the salary, right? When we're looking at hiring locally, it's everything on top of that. So when you're adding things on like payroll, and in Australia, we have things like payroll tax, the workspace, they're still working in the office 3 days a week, mandatory work cover, so insurance, their computer, IT, phones, etc., and general IT support. The reality for this business is when they hire someone locally, it would cost them about it was $71,100. Okay, so no problems there. When they wanted to do the analysis of, we want the same thing. We want someone with exceptional English, degree qualified, has worked for an international agency, has about 2 years experience. What can we look at? What's the comparison? So this is like for like. And you can obviously tell which way the agency decided to move, but you can see here, and I've even included our management fees, right? This is a turnkey solution. This is everything. This is what you pay on an annual leave. You've got their monthly salary. In Asia, you have to legally pay them a 13th month bonus. You legally have to cover their health and medical. You're covering all their public holidays and annual and sick leave. So you've got all that combined, and everything comes to Australian $31,000.20. And that's like for like. So as owners, I'm sure you're all looking at this going, it makes sense. So in this case, absolutely, they went with outsourcing. And when you're looking at it, like, to be frank, a lot of a lot of outsourcing companies, so people like me, they'll freaking sell you the dream. They'll be like, oh, you can save 70 to 80% off local labor costs. If you want cheap talent that's, can barely do the job, can't think critically, can't problem solve, yeah, maybe. In our experience, we look at 50-50. So it's normally 50% less of what you'd pay a local, regardless of where your local team is based. So that's kind of what you need to look at when you're looking at costs. So you've hired your first person, right? You've gone through that journey. When I was actually speaking to Alex about a month ago, he actually asked me this question, and it was a fantastic question, and I'm really glad that he sees the importance of this. But it's great hiring, but how do you then manage someone? How do you manage an outsourced employee? Because they're from a different country, right? And I'm telling you the reason, so people come to us for two reasons. They've never done it before, and they just want someone to walk them through it, hold their hands, mitigate their risk. Or like all of us have had a shocking experience, and they're like, I cannot go through that again. It was a waste of time. It was a waste of money. My local team are very hesitant, but I know I need to do this. So the reasons why outsourcing fails is you don't actually have an understanding of outsourcing, and you don't know how to make it work for your business. Owners have unrealistic expectations. So they're not clear about what success and failure looks like. Frankly, quite hire the wrong people. And lastly, they have no guidance or support. So you don't know what you don't know, right? So this is why outsourcing companies like ourselves exist. And how are you meant to know cultural nuances? How are you meant to know how to integrate people into your local culture? And everyone wants a happy workforce, but we also want consistent high performance. So how do we drive that? How do we drive that as a business? So the question I know everyone's like is, how do I build and manage an outsourced team that actually works? And again, we covered this before about the biggest fear I hear from agencies, and it doesn't matter if you're a one-man band or you're an agency with 600 people, the fear is the same. People do not want to waste time, they don't want to waste money, and they need it to work the first time. So the most important piece of the puzzle, in my opinion, when building a team and performance managing them, is having a true partner who is there to help you when you need them and gets your industry, gets what you do, gets your pain points, gets what success looks like. Secondly, you must mitigate your risk by recruiting right. So personally, I've interviewed over 8,000 people. Yes, I've been in this game a long time, from CEOs of global tech companies to developers. I've worked with startups for Fortune 500 companies. If you don't go through a rigorous recruitment process, I do not care how awesome you are or your team is, how robust your workflows and processes are, you are absolutely increasing your chances of fucking up your outsourcing journey. So what do we hear from companies when they're struggling with outsourcing and have underperforming team members, right? It's clients will say, I feel like my team members can only follow the bouncing ball. There is a lack of critical thinking. There's a lack of initiative. There's a lack of solution solving, poor communication. Even in devs, even if they're 20,000 miles away or 50,000 miles away, you need them to be able to communicate. They have to be able to update your project management systems. They have to be able to communicate internally. It's absolutely critical. Distance matters, and distance increases the importance of being able to communicate effectively. So I'm going to give you some real practical tips This is the real secret sauce to make sure you're managing performance and helping you make it work. So my first tip, and again, a lot of this is going to be so easy, but it's the easy stuff that people don't do, is actually research the country you choose to outsource from. Do some research about what are the general customs, what about the food, what about the people, workplace culture. So to give you an example, most people don't realize that the Philippines has 120 million people. It's very, very Americanized. It has an American education and university system. They are also the third largest English-speaking country in the world. I often say Filipinos speak better English than myself. Basketball is their national sport. You guys will love this. I actually had a dev work for our business. His legal name is Shaquille O'Neal. So as you can appreciate, I had great pleasure in telling people that Shaq worked for us. So that gives you some insight. The second thing about how do I manage performance, how do I make it work, is onboard your new offshore outsourced person as you would a local, as you would if someone was sitting next to you, and really have a very robust induction program. It can be 1 or 2 days a week, it doesn't really matter, but it's really important that you give them a clear picture of your vision, your mission, your values, your business goals, your strategy, and reminding them again, this is why I have you on board. Here's the critical projects. For instance, you're going to be, on straight away, but this is where I see the business going, and this is your role to play. Another powerful tool, I pretty much make this mandatory with all the clients that we work with, is setting up one-on-one video chats with all your local team. So it doesn't matter if there's 3 of you, there's 50 of you. When your new team member, like outsourced, comes on board, particularly in that first month, if you can schedule just one catch up a day, 30 minutes max, and they're meeting people within your business, again, they're feeling connected, you're building rapport, because a lot of the time as owners, we get why we're outsourcing, but locally they don't, right? They have no idea, why did you go to the Philippines instead of hiring in Chicago? So it's building relationships. It's getting them to understand everyone's part to play in the business. Daily video catch-ups. To be honest, this is where a lot of people suck at. It is mandatory. If you want a successful team and you want to get it right, it only has to be 3 to 5 minutes a day. I'm not talking hour, video conversations, but the power of seeing someone. The more they see your face, the more they feel connected, right? And you want to strengthen your relationship, particularly of distance. Make sure you're also inviting them to your virtual company events. I often find locally people have this amazing culture and they're always doing all these great things, but they forget about their international team. They forget about their outsourced team. They are part of your business, and making them feel connected. So if you're doing drinks on Friday afternoon, then they should have a drink at their house Friday afternoon, right? If you're knocking off on Fridays half an hour early, so should your outsourced team member. I'm really big about, regardless of where you're hiring, is everyone should have metrics. Every job, whether it's the receptionist, the digital marketer, the developer, the CEO, right? It's really important that you're very clear with KPIs and you're very clear about what success looks like to you at every start of so for instance, with development, you might have a project. You've got to be very clear about the milestones and what you need achieved, and that you're on point, delivering on time to budget. So being clear and reiterating that regularly is really, really important. The other thing, and I know clients hate this, but I'm telling you, this is the most powerful thing you can do to make sure performance is consistent, make sure you're on the same page, and making sure you're not pulling your hair out, right? Is so with our clients, for instance, we use a professional HR system. It's called Bamboo HR. And they have to give weekly feedback, which we as a management team can see, and both sides. The reason is distance. We are all normally very nice, reasonable people. But what happens is if we're not writing it down like this is what's working and this is where you fucked up and this is what I need you to do to fix it, or this is what I expect next week, it can get out of control really, really fast. So if you're communicating, this is what's working, this is what's not working, what you'll find again is you're mitigating your risk of success, right? You're making sure that you're both on the same page, you're having the discussions. If it's not working, at least you know quickly and you can do something about it, right? You're not pulling your hair out, and very importantly, your local team isn't screaming at you going, this isn't working, right? So again, it's really important. And I know, like I always say to clients, it's 60 seconds. It's 60 seconds of your day. Put it in your calendar. I put it in my calendar and I make sure I'm really clear. So Alex also said, and to be honest, this is a really big thing. We need experts, right? So what level of autonomy to expect when you're outsourcing? So this is my response to that. You should expect the same from your international team member with what you expect from your local team members. However, to caveat that, you cannot expect to happen overnight, right? But you can expedite that process. And again, I'm largely talking between the US and Filipino culture. So my first tip for you is start specific, then widen the lane. So if you're like me, when I hire people, I want people who know more than me, who are bloody awesome at what they do. They're experts in their area. And ideally, hopefully, they hit the ground running, right? I could be like, go, do, here's the brief, run. We all want that, right? The reality is with outsourced teams, that is unrealistic. You're setting yourself up to fail and you're setting your team up to fail. So even though that's how we like to work, and we hate, like every employee will always say, I hate being micromanaged. It's true. In the Philippines, again, I'm talking specifically there, it's the opposite. They really like to understand initially what are the goalposts. So whilst counterintuitive to us, in the beginning, it's really important you put timeframes. They don't like ASAP, like the word ASAP. Do you know that that's not even a word that they're brought up with? The first time they normally hear it is when they work for international clients. So you imagine as a culture, that doesn't mean anything. So how do you get them to understand urgency? Drop everything, do it now. So it's really important that you're very clear about, hey, here's the goalposts, here's the timelines, and help them through it. Now, over time, and that can be quick, right? Some people get it in a week, some people like a month, but you absolutely should not be waiting 6 months for someone to get it, right? But as they're feeling comfortable and they're going, cool, I understand how you work, I understand what success looks like, I understand what you mean by your deadlines, etc. You can then invite your teammates to resolving more ambiguous briefs. So for development, for instance, it could be things like, I'm not going to tell you how long this should take. I need you to come up with an estimation and cost it out. It could be a digital marketer where the client's given the brief and you say to them, what's realistic? What's the ROI that we can get? How do we go about it? What's achievable? What's not achievable? And how do we say that to a client? Absolutely. The second point is providing freedom within a framework. So if you're like myself, you know, I actually love work. I absolutely love working. So even when I was an employee, I worked 12-hour days. I love it. And as owners, we work hard and we do whatever it takes to get the job done. With our local hires, when you're hiring locally, generally, particularly in agency world, our staff know if we can finish at 5, awesome. But if we have projects and we've promised a client a delivery date, and if that means I've got to work till midnight to get my bit done, we will, right? We innately know that. It's very rare that we have to talk about that with our local teams. Vice versa, we're very normally quite flexible. If someone's like, yeah, cool, I might start working at 9 a.m. instead of everyone else doing 8, we normally don't have a problem if it makes business sense. And also, if we're late to work, naturally, and I'm talking very generally here, but most people will naturally stay back, or they might cut into their lunch break, right? They're not going to take the piss. Interestingly, in the Philippines and a lot of other Asian countries, they're not raised in that environment. It's not even in schooling, not even in social settings. So it's very much island time. So if you tell me to start work at 8 and I start work at 12, traditionally, there's no problems. So it's really important when you're dealing with outsourced teams to be very clear. Even though you might have one rule for your local team, you have to be very strict with timeframes with your outsourced team. So you don't move shifts. The shift time is the shift time. Sometimes you do have to explain, hey, you have to work back. You're not going to get paid for it because that's part of your job. Don't expect it. And lastly, be fair, but firm and very clear. So what I find is, I don't know if everyone's heard of the shit sandwich. It's an old school management technique where, you know, you say something nice, you say what you're really trying to say, and you end with something nice, right? And we get emails, like everyone does it, right? You see emails, we can read through the lines. That's our culture. We can pick up meanings behind emails, behind conversations. Interestingly, though, in the Philippines, that is not something that is in their culture. It is they're very, very honest. What they say is what they mean. So they often don't pick up that. So it's really important to be very clear with achievements. So when they've done really well, don't just go great job, go great job. And here's A, B, C, D, E. This is why. So it could be, again, I'm going to use development as an example. The estimate versus actual budget was accurate. There was very little rework and on budget, right, on time. So then you're being very clear about why it was successful, and vice versa. You're being very clear when it's, you know, I asked you to do this by 2, why wasn't it done? And you didn't communicate. So again, just be very firm, be very clear, don't be ambiguous with your communication style. And I really want to leave you guys with this. Pretty much in agencies and all businesses, the biggest expense is generally people. I personally believe people also provide the most value to your business. So you, as an owner, as an agency, you now have the ability to get highly qualified people from all over the world who can support the technology, your product set, and your customer base. But it's really about being smart about how you hire. And when you're looking at that, you really need to, when you're looking at your people strategy, You need to understand what combination is going to work with your budget, your revenues, whilst ensuring you're getting the most bang for buck when hiring people. So does outsourcing work? Yes, it does. And hopefully today I've given you some tips and tools to make that work for your business. So I am very, very excited about Q&A. I hope you've got some lots of tough questions and look forward to saying hello. Thanks, Alex.
Easy peasy. That was great. So definitely we have you for a little bit more. So we want to ask any relevant questions. I mean, my questions are all a little bit lower than sort of the typical client that you're used to when you're looking at, let's say, dipping your toe in the water with outsourcing. You want to get something of a project going. So you want to say,
yep,
I build a lot of HubSpot instances. I need someone to project manage and really help us scale, not scale, but I want to start selling more HubSpot builds. What is something I can do? How can I start? Where would I go? How do I go about this whole thing?
Yeah. So the same thing applies to when you would hire locally. Understand the outcomes. Understand what is it that I want to achieve? What do I need for success? My tip is go to an outsourcing company, talk them through. This is what I need to happen. This is my metrics. Can you deliver? The biggest thing is you don't want someone selling you a dream, because they will. It's really important that you talk to someone that you trust, or you talk to multiple people and go, can this be doable? Do I deliver? And then you start the process, and you've got to be involved. If you're very hands off and you're like, I don't care, just send me some resumes, and you just pick someone, it won't work. You have to not just test. So again, a lot of clients don't do testing. We now make it mandatory. Is we do testing on our end. Right? They've already been vetted. You've got to interview. You've got to like this person, right? It's not just about technical skill set. It's you've got to expand your mind. I've now got an international office. I've got to connect. Do they fit in with myself and my team? Can they deliver what they say they're going to deliver? And let me get proof. So evidence is really important. Everyone can do the talk. So give them tests, give them real life tests, particularly if you're talking about HubSpot, etc., or marketing. Get them to do it, give them time frames, see what comes back, and the proof's in the pudding. So that's kind of how I would do it.
Got it. Yeah. It's a situation where I think most agencies that I know that outsource, they do chip off small projects to start. They find someone really good, and then they build layers. So that person becomes the head of that operation, right? So it could be an onboarding, it could be a sales operation, it could be a data, typically data and sales, I think, are where most people start. But what would you suggest? Where's a really awesome place to start with outsourcing?
Okay. I think where it fails is, look, everyone here has already done it. I guarantee you, everyone's already gone on Upwork and Fiverr. Like I've done that too, right? That's where most people start. And it's just in my opinion, it's always hit and miss. Sometimes you find great people, but you've gone through 15 people, they ghost you, all this crazy stuff. If you want to go down that road, fine. But if you're taking your business seriously, to be honest, Alex, I'm like, just take the step. Just go, I need someone full time. I've got to create work, hire someone, do it right. So I think project-based, there are agencies that do project-based work. If you want to go down that road, do it. But it's a totally different experience to when you're engaging in an outsourcing company for someone that's dedicated to you. So my thing is always, if you've got 20 hours a week of work, it actually transfers like locally to about 40 hours. So in terms of costings, and you will find things to do. So like you were saying about HubSpot, what else can they do to add value to your business to create, say, 40 hours? But that's my honest opinion.
Yeah, very cool. So Andreas, we just got done with the presentation, but we were just chatting about some of the dipping your toe in the water type stuff to get going and ramp up some scalable, outsourced, owned by someone that has the skill set at about 31,000 US dollars a year is the average, what we're looking at right now. So going from figuring out if you should go and just hire that type of individual at 31K versus maybe start a project and then have more of a project based, hey, if they do this correctly, this is going to be a good place for you to start. So I think HubSpot, most of you are, I think, HubSpot users, or at least I think B2B on this call right now. So we can talk about that specifically. So I know it's not your wheelhouse B2B, but HubSpot. The main things that you can go, let's just say if I wanted to figure out who I can hire that is a HubSpot professional that I can then turn into a full-time team member that can then own a team in the Philippines and develop from there. Is that something I use you for? Is there?
100%. That's where you would come to us. Or a business like us. So come to Filter. Always happy to have a chat and work that out. And you're right, Alex. The first person is normally the most important person in outsourcing. You have to get that right. You have to think of like team leadership, even if it's not in that particular discipline, but it's team leader of culture. So it's a little bit more complex than I just need someone great. Interestingly, so the things that we use, we headhunt candidates. So what we do locally, so I just placed 2 account managers in New York City for pharmaceutical brands, for an agency to manage their pharmaceutical brands. It's the same process. Oh God, I've lost my thought. What was the question?
So really, it's really,
sorry guys.
If I really want to outsource a big chunk of my repeatable processes, and we're using HubSpot as the example, so this could be setting up HubSpot instances. This could be just duplicating campaigns in HubSpot. This could be just maybe even an additional layer of client management. I'm getting bombarded. I need emails answered. I need stuff. I need more of a virtual assistant, but I want that person to really know HubSpot so that they can almost do project management and all of that as well. Where do I go?
So where do you go? If you went to a company like ours, we don't believe in ads, like job ads, because we find the best talent is normally in a job, or you can find them in things. So things that I'd be looking at if you're doing it yourself is not just your standard Upwork, etc. Look at LinkedIn. We're on TikTok. And we have communities in TikTok. We've had people who apply for jobs specifically from TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're in a lot of communities. It's really about where is your talent and how do you go about finding them. So that's what I would do first of all. If you're time poor and you're like, this is a nightmare, I really don't want to go through 50 resumes or interview 50 people, definitely that's when you'd come and speak to us and go, I'm taking this seriously. This is what I need. How do you do it? Or do it for me, help me,
got it,
save me time, and then goes from there.
Got it. So the value for working with you is you can essentially be the HR department for an outsourced team. So if you want to scale an outsourced team, you first put in, whether it's inside the US or inside your own team, it doesn't matter. You put in someone that's going to own HR, and then they build the team. So for you, go to you, hire you to build a 20-person team, whatever, maybe 10-person,
whatever.
Scale it from there. And there's probably some way of working with you to dip your toe in the water to see if that is a fit before you kind of do anything larger. And then the way I understand it, which is pretty cool, is like some of the larger companies are using outsourced labor in the Philippines to manage HubSpot, Salesforce. They have trained and developed entire workforces down there that know HubSpot better than most agency owners that I talk to. They are badass HubSpot implementation experts. Obviously at about a third of the cost. All of that is valuable, but like you said, the really good ones are being picked up. So I wanted to find maybe just one or two really good HubSpot implementation experts or experts in one major SaaS.
Yep.
What would you recommend? Should I go to you still for that, or is there another?
100%.
Source? Okay.
100%. That's what we do.
Perfect.
So my advice is, so kind of how we do it, Alex, is a little bit different to most. Is it's kind of like we're your training wheels and we're here holding your hand, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. So if an agency came to me and go, here's a job spec, just go, see you later. It's very much, let's do a workshop, let's do a deep dive into your business, into the role, and really understand what it is. So we call it like a job description on steroids. So we have a 17-page document that we're like, cool, this is what success looks like. Because it's not just, again, about finding someone, how do you retain them? And how can we help you retain them? Then it's the headhunting, finding people who meet that brief and have got that experience, like you said. So there's specific companies that we would actually normally target who we know they're good. You put them through your own testing. We put them through our own testing. We submit them to our clients with reviews, recommendations, his portfolios, his link of work, etc. We even sit in interviews. Most of our clients, Alex, don't even know, they don't have to interview a lot, right? We do this all day, every day. We're happy to sit in, coach you, give you that comfort. And then from there, like I always say, it's not just about hiring the right person. How do you manage that? And how do you manage it successfully with high ROI quickly?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, it's always about the actionable. What do we do right now? So let's just make it really simple. So let's say what I would do is you probably, I think some of the, Andreas, you're busy as hell. You're probably looking for admin support. I'm guessing you may need HubSpot support. You may need something else, but you kind of list out, what I like to do is list out all the tasks that are simple, repetitive, weekly, monthly, maybe quarterly, put those into a sheet, add hours and maybe even some links and descriptions next to each one of those. And, you know, you kind of total it at the bottom. So you've got your list of tasks that are administrative in one tab, maybe a list of tasks that are tool specific, like HubSpot, in another tab. And you look at those two and you develop maybe a half a week, maybe you develop a full week, and you look at the totals, right? And then if you're comfortable outsourcing that, then you go to Nerissa with that sheet and you say, what can I do about this? What would you suggest?
That's it.
And she'll say, you know what, I would staff this with 2 part-time people. I'd staff that with 1 full-time person. She'd look in with someone with those in her network for someone with those skills. And then what you could do is essentially do a contract. I'm guessing there's some level of either 3-month or 6-month contract.
Yep. So it's with regards to our business, it's monthly contract. So it's
yes,
month on month.
The suggestion for getting someone really good, I mean, I assume.
Oh, you need to see long term. Yeah. This is not remember, if you want the best talent, they're in good jobs. They want stability, they want security, they want to understand your vision, they want to understand it's for the long haul. So yeah, you're right, Alex. If you're just thinking, I'll just get someone and if it doesn't work, see you later, that's the wrong attitude. The other thing I think too is it's okay to have discussions. I have discussions with people all the time. Like I'm dealing with a Canadian agency at the moment, and he sent me his full brief, like it was like a 20-page brief for one job. And he's like, these are the 10 must-haves. I said, that is not possible. It's not even possible locally. So dream on. And he was like, oh yeah, I just thought I'd try it. I'm like, cool. But what you can do is you can do this, this, and this. So even if, like, Alex, I love your idea, it's like really mapping it out. Even if you guys are like, I'm not sure, I don't know what to add, I don't know what to delete, have a chat to me and I'll talk you through it and I'll be real about what can work.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part, is just to start the conversation, figure out if it's something that's necessary. I mean, branding, I feel the branding concerns as well. I just want to nip that in the bud real quick. So like when you're talking to your clients about outsourcing and they say, you know what, I hate to have someone offshore or just someone that's not culture fit. What do you say to those types of people or those types of questions? Sorry.
Yeah. So normally where that comes from is people are worried about how their clients will see it. So they're like, do I have to advertise it? Like, do I have to put them on my website? Have that? I think what we're saying with agencies, kind of that barrier is broken, because now you can be anywhere in the world and people are used to it now. You can still charge the same prices. I think that's what people are really concerned about, is how do I charge the same if they can see all my teams in another country, like the Philippines? So it's more about, that's normal. Clients, you're probably finding that anyway. Clients are quite responsive. That's kind of my answer to that.
Yeah. It depends where you're going to put this person, of course, but what I would do is I think the suggestion is you have something that you would and are probably outsourcing anyways to start. Have them develop such a refined operating procedure around that repetitive task, whatever it is, that it is scalable. You and your team do the sales operations and the client management like you normally do, and you create that SOP and that really well-oiled machine of sales and operations. And this person and their team are scaling the implementation side and the operation side, and even some level of admin in there as well. But they're scaling that so that you can get 3x the work done with one person, and you increase your margins immediately, which adds more budget to do awesome stuff on the sales side and the growth side to get things done. So
100%.
No further questions for me. If anyone has any questions, I'll turn it over to you. I think we have just a couple more minutes, but if no other questions, you have Nerissa's contact information on LinkedIn. She'll accept your connection request. You can chat there. There's also a link to her company. Anything else? Anywhere else they should go to find you?
No, I live on LinkedIn. That is my baby. So absolutely happy to have a chat. I always send coffees to people's houses. So if you want to have a chat, I don't care where you live. I've gone really weird coffee delivery places we found. So always happy to have a chat. Lovely. I just noticed Michael has spent 2019 in Queensland, which is awesome. But yeah, any questions, don't hesitate to. Nice to meet you, Michael.
Hi, good to meet you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I thought I'd jump in with one question and also
Please.
say hi. Loved Brisbane, visited many times, spent most of my time in Bundaberg, but we'll definitely be back. You gave a great example of a kind of a quantified salary cost comparison between Brizzy and Philippines.
Yes.
And you gave us a lot of great actions and qualities to implement around outsourcing the work to avoid pitfalls and ensure that things work. Can you quantify the second half of those things, those activities, in a way that we can compare the resources required to implement the additional employee management activities? Or is that included in the chart? You had operational cost in there. I'm not sure what's included in that on the Philippines chart. Or is it implied that those activities are roughly the same as you would with a local, and so it's a wash? In my experience, it felt like it took more. Maybe that was just my emotional reaction to it, but it felt like it took more of my time and energy to manage the remote employee.
Yeah, Michael, a lot of people say that, and that's why we built a business. Like, our business is really high touch, because you want high ROI quickly. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is you want to return your investment, and you don't want to be spending, like you said, all this time with your remote, and you're not getting the same output as your local team. So what I've found, so I do a lot of training with clients before they even start about how to build it, how to make it successful. But if you're doing it yourself, it's really about that critical thinking. So if I can give you one tip, is when you're recruiting, particularly in the Philippines, is you want the person that thinks critically. So all your questions are around behaviors. You need people who've already proven the fact that they can think outside the square, they're thinking critically, add value, test it. And then you should see that really quickly when you're managing them, if that makes sense. And being really precious with your time. So the Filipino culture is very much about the boss is always right. The boss is always right. It's very disrespectful to challenge or give suggestions. We don't want that, right? As owners, we want things just to, like, that's why we hired you, is we want ideas. So how do you give them that comfort and getting them to do that and doing their job and not you solving every problem for them? There's a lot of tools that you can do that, and I'm happy to chat to you later about it. But it's things like telling them, solve your problem, come to me with 3 solutions. Really pulling yourself back, not answering every question. So that's kind of things that we do to really mitigate that risk, because I see it as, don't do it if you're going to invest half your week training someone or reminding them, or like, come on, let's get them on the same page, or I'm doing rework, nothing more painful. So yeah,